Hey, welcome to Dollar Views. I'm Brian Gillis.
And I'm Stephen Montmanex.
We're just two Long Beach State film grads with a lifelong passion for cinema trying to put our money where our mouths are.
And we decided to make our BAs mean something by giving our 2 cents on the weekly film releases.
Whether it's the cute romantic comedy,
or the latest cult classics,
from the little-known indies and docs,
to the latest Michael Bay masterpiece.
we go over it all, $1 at a time.
If you're uncomfortable, you don't have to do anything you don't want to.
Okay.
Hello, you new around here?
We just moved here from Seattle.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Wow, Max is really taking a shine to your boy. Tonight is our regular pizza night. We could turn it into a welcome to the neighborhood get-together. It could be fun. Going to Whole Foods now. Any dietary restrictions?
I don't think so.
Screw it. You guys, I'm so excited. Yay!
All right.
Whoa.
Wow. Thank you for having us in
Thank
your
you.
beautiful home.
Glad you could be of service. Why don't we put the kids to bed upstairs and continue down here?
Oh.
Give me 20 minutes and I will give you parental bliss.
The Overnight, the latest of the Duplass brothers films. Not exactly theirs, but, they did executive produce. And you can just tell from the get-go that this was filmed in their kind of style. It's not mumblecore.
I think it is mumblecore.
Almost.
I don't know, I mean, it definitely doesn't feel like it. It feels more scripted, but...
Your theater, your audience, how big was it? What was it like?
It was about 40% full, so I had a good crowd.
Okay, you had a good crowd. I had no crowd.
They were into it, yeah.
I had literally 3 people, and so it was one couple and a random person, and he left before the climax.
Then this must have been very uncomfortable for you to watch.
No, I'm into the weird...
Or just very boring?
Yeah, it was more boring than anything. I'm into the weird, kinky sex stuff. But yeah, I felt alone, and I wasn't laughing at almost anything, so...
I had a good crowd, and we were just kind of enjoying how absurd and, just weird it was getting.
It was definitely getting weird. I give it that.
Yeah, no, it was very... It gets very uncomfortable. Like, I don't know. I guess the best thing I can come up with is it kind of... as you're watching it, you're wondering, like, because there's a bit of a date rapey vibe, and you're wondering if that's what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's very weird, and it's hilarious at the same time. And then, by the end, though, everything ends up making sense, kinda.
I don't
know, but it's the audience experience. I wish that my theater was a bit more full, because there would be much better, louder reactions. But I had a really good time watching it.
I didn't. I did enjoy it. Well, I didn't. It wasn't a waste of my time, but that's only because it was 80 minutes. I liked the short runtime. This felt exactly the right length.
Yeah, no.
But
because if it kept going, it would have been more uncomfortable.
I wouldn't even say uncomfortable. Like, you have to go really far to shock me. Like, this is definitely a psych-out sex comedy. But just everything I read about, well, not read, but any of the tweets I saw before going into this, I had these expectations. I was like, oh, it's going to be really funny. It's going to be great. I mean, it doesn't help that I follow the Duplass brothers, so that, they're promoting it and Creep, their new iTunes movie. But I don't know. It didn't do anything for me.
Well, I think for me, like, it did get more uncomfortable in the second half. First half, I was laughing at how weird it was. Second half, I was getting worried because I don't think it's not really in any way related to Mark Duplass, other than he was in what's it called? Your Sister's Sister?
Yeah.
And I really, really, really hate that movie. It's not because it's a bad movie. It's actually really good. But then there's a certain point where a character just does something I find is completely unforgivable, and yet everybody's okay with it. And, I was worried at, like, about halfway through that the same thing was going to happen here, and that's what I mean by, like, there's a bit of a date rapey vibe, and that if something did happen, everyone would be okay with it. That was my big worry. I'm not going to say what it is, but thankfully that wasn't the case. But were you surprised to learn that those were prosthetics?
No.
Or do you even know that?
That didn't even look like Jason Schwartzman's flesh tone.
I wasn't really thinking, like, whether or not it was, because just narratively I was surprised that they went there.
I wasn't.
I know
I must have read
rated
something.
R.
Yeah, it was rated R.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it. And, I realized, like, right when I was watching it was rated R. But, they hold on to it. It's not like you can't do that in R-rated films, but they make it a pretty big deal that I was wondering, like, if this could have been an NC-17. I didn't know it,
No.
but one thing is for sure is that if this was a big studio movie, there's no way that they would let that slide.
Well, I mean, a studio wouldn't make this film to begin with.
Yeah.
There's no market
I think
for
something like that, though, they're much more friendlier to indie distributors.
This kind of reminded me, I mean, I haven't seen the whole thing in a long time. I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing. But it kind of reminded me of Woody Allen's Everything You Want to Know About Sex But Too Afraid to Ask.
I never saw it.
Well, it's obviously different because this is a cohesive narrative, and that's an adaptation of a book, and it's kind of like episodic things. Like one of them, I think it's like Gene Wilder waking up in bed with the sheep, and he's like, "Oh, that was great sex, huh?" And they're both smoking. But the feeling I got from this film, it's meant for adults. You're supposed to be a certain age. You're supposed to be married. It has a very inclusive audience, and I'm not in that, and so I felt very excluded. I didn't, there is some funny stuff going on, but it's more it's more of a, oh, that's really weird, let me laugh at it type of thing, which isn't really my humor. I like literal funny. I like Adam Scott. Taylor Schilling, she's okay. But yeah, they weren't bad. No one was bad. The four primaries, the only primaries rather, they're good. The kids were good. The script,
for what little you saw.
Exactly. The script wasn't bad or anything. It's just it didn't do anything for me.
I think for me, not only was it funny, but I think there's a lot more depth than you see in there. Like you're absolutely right. Like people that are married, they can probably relate to this more. But even though I'm still really young, I'm nowhere near close to being engaged in a monogamous relationship. But I do get curious about how that would work, especially in today's age, because
the
that's
dynamic.
what this movie is basically, testing, just trying to see if that flame is still there, or if you really are just looking for something else. And as I really wonder if not to get too philosophical here, but if people are really capable of just staying monogamous. So we're both children of divorce then.
Yeah, like 80% of America.
For me, though, like as I was growing up, my parents were still together all throughout high school. All my friends, their parents were divorced. So, it kind of, to me, I felt like I was the odd one out weirdly because my parents were still together. Not that I thought that was a bad thing, but by the time that my parents separated, I really wasn't traumatized at all. I was kind of numb to it. I just figured like, okay, well, I guess it's about time. And, because every kid that I know, all my friends, they all have their parents are separated. That's why I wonder, like, okay.
It's the norm.
Yeah, and so it's just, I think it's interesting to see how that's going to play out. And really it just taps into this this whole side of, whether people are really capable of staying together, whether they mean it or not, because it's not like these characters hate each other. They're just looking for something different.
Yeah, that is something.
And I did find that very interesting.
Yeah, these characters, like this plays out more like a play. Like the screen time matches the story time for the most part, which is something I like. Before Sunrise is one of my favorite films. But it just, I don't know, it didn't connect with me. And maybe that's because, I haven't been in a relationship in so long, and not to mention a long-term one.
No, it got me thinking, though, of what could,
it definitely
relationships could go.
Yeah, it definitely does raise some questions. And like I said, if you are married, I think, and going through some shit, or even if, your marriage is great, I think it would be great, but I'm not the audience.
It's like, I really do wonder how it just seems like the traditional idea of a relationship, get married,
the nuclear family.
Yeah, be together forever, always be in love. That's really, I think that'll be dead pretty soon.
I'm a hopeless romantic, as like evident in my love for rom-coms. And I didn't dislike this film because it's so counter to that. It seemed realistic. It had that was the good thing about it. Like it was very, you could tell it's an indie because it's not trying to paint a pretty picture. It's not putting roses and flowers, just drawing buttholes. I don't know. I don't even know what else to say about this film because it's you can only say so much without ruining anything.
Well, I can talk about it thematically. I don't want to ruin the specific plot points, but I do think in the end it doesn't really come down on the side or saying that monogamous relationships are a bad idea or they won't work. It's about like testing whether or not those whether or not they still can work and what the values of that. And it kind of comes down on both sides, I guess, depending on which relationship you're looking at. But just as for the movie itself, I think it's funny. I think it's I had a good time with my audience. I think when this hits Netflix and you're bored and you just want to kill 80 minutes and you want to laugh at something, this could work. It's it's definitely not in the conventional Hollywood norm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I had the experience as if I was watching it on Netflix, and it didn't work for me. Like I had time to kill after work, so I watched the first half of Magic Mike again, which wasn't quite as good as the first time. But that once again, that was because of the audience. The audience wasn't nearly as good as the first time I saw it. But no, I don't know. I highly unrecommend this film.
I think it's worth if you want to check it out, if it's at the theater near you and you're really curious about it, then yeah, by all means, it's worth paying for. But it's going to end up on Netflix. It's
definitely going to be Netflix
if you got nothing else to do.
Now, in terms of the theme, especially what you're talking about, the trivialities and whatnot of monogamy and if it works in marriage and kids and whatnot. The Duplass Brothers show on HBO, Togetherness, does the exact same thing, but it has heart. It's not going for shock humor. Like it feels like a very sanguine, realistic family. Then again, this is a television show, so with a series, you have much more breathing room. Like 2 episodes of that show equals almost this whole film. So it's hard to compare the two, but I definitely think how it breaks down the modern day romance and marriage is just done much better, and that's also because the Duplass Brothers scripted it. I don't even who's the director on this. I never heard the name.
I think it's the guy's second feature, but I don't have the guy's name in front of me. But I do have to credit this movie though for having probably if I don't know if I got a ranking of dick jokes in movies,
pretty high.
This is probably my second favorite.
Yeah, it is, one trick pony, kind of.
I was really surprised that they went there. And I had to check, later on, if that was actually real. I was thinking, yeah, this could be a prosthetic because...
Totally not real. I think the dicks being shown themselves is that surprise factor that's supposed to get the laughs.
Well, yeah, my audience definitely was shocked by that. I was surprised, not by the fact that it was there just as shock value, but narratively that it went there.
It's a big...
And it just made that situation way more awkward.
It's a big part of the story.
Yeah, it's a huge part.
Yeah, I mean, there's very little to say about this film. It's so short. It's all dialogue. Well, not all, but mostly dialogue. And so you can't really say anything without ruining it. Like I said earlier, I don't recommend it. It's definitely an interesting watch. And if you're at a similar place in your life, then, definitely go check it out. But it's nothing to write home about.
I don't think there's many people that I can enthusiastically recommend this to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell, just my friends that are average movie watchers to watch this when it's on Netflix because they're going to think it's very weird. That's for sure. But if you're game to see something like this, then, by all means, it's a weirdly funny movie. And I do think there is a lot there to digest if you like thinking about relationships and movies.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. I hope it's been a pleasure. If you enjoyed it, you can find updates and when episodes go live on Facebook and Twitter at Dollar Reviews. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Brian Gillis, that's BryonGillis, and also under the same name on the lovely site Letterboxd, which acts as my film diary, where I rate the films I watch on an almost daily basis, write the occasional review, and even sometimes compile lists.
You can also find me on Twitter at S_MTX. And also follow my film diary at letterboxd.com. My username is also S_MTX. There I log everything I watch and sometimes write brief reviews.
If you loved what we said, you'd like to contribute some talking points, or you just want to laugh at us and send us hate mail, you can do so at dollar.review@gmail.com.
And since we don't know where you're listening from, you can find our recent reviews on iTunes by searching Dollar Reviews. We're also on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/dollarreviews. And if you're sad that you missed a review and you can't find it on either of those platforms, you can find our entire archive at youtube.com/dollarreview. Once again, that's dollar review, one word without the S.
Until next time, keep the change.